Okay. Hey everybody, this is our last webinar. But again, I'm always available for any questions and all you have to do is email or give me a call. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to thumb through the application and point out some things that maybe I didn't cover or that I feel like I need to kind of go over again because they're really, really huge. And starting up here, just want to be clear that the deadline for your application is the 1st, and you have to do it through the portal of that the State Department has set up. Once I get notification of those applications, I'm probably going to turn around and ask you to email me a copy that is just in Word because I've never used the portal before and I don't know what that's going to look like and how easy that's going to be, because the last time I did it, somebody else put it in. So I might do that. But your actual official application is through the portal by February 1st. And they didn't put a time on here, but usually it's like noon, but maybe they'll give you till 5. Okay, so let me start going through here. And I just want to start quickly on the definitions. And I want to make sure you understand what an alternative education campus is. If you are trying to have a specific school that serves one of these categories, you may be considered an AEC. The only thing that AEC truly gives you is it gets you off the hook of the state statute that says that if you are the bottom rung of whatever the federal accountability system is 3 years in a row, you are automatically closed. Not maybe, not might be, you are automatic and you get no appeal. That's it, you're done. So, but if you're an AEC, because you're serving this specific group of kids, then you may, that's basically high risk, then you're off that hook, but that doesn't mean you can't be shut down if you're not doing what your charter says you're going to do. Okay. I want to make sure we realize the difference between a certified teacher, which 75% of your teachers must be, and a non-certified teacher, which up to 25% of your teachers can be. So certified means you actually are certified by the state of South Carolina. If you're trying to hire people from out of state, they can go through reciprocity if their state has an agreement with our state and get their certification without doing much more. They would need to call the Office of Certification and get with them and get that process rolling. It is not a quick process, so they would need to do it as soon as they get hired. So when we start looking, I'm going to go down here to non-certified teacher. It means an individual considered appropriately qualified for the subject matter taught. So that means that I might be certified in math, but I'm going to teach a science class. That means I still have to be qualified to teach that science class, and who has completed at least 1 year of study at an accredited college or university and meets the qualifications outlined in 5925-115. So what you're looking at there is you either have a degree in that, or you have 18 hours in that subject matter. 18 hours. And you would be considered allowable. All right. And that becomes important because there's a report they're going to run that's going to look at all your certified versus non-certified teachers every year to make sure that you're staying under that 25% of non-certified teachers. And we totally encourage you to be unique. You know, hey, you might find an engineer and say, hey, come in and teach a calculus class or something like that. Obviously, they're extremely qualified to teach a class. That doesn't make them a good teacher just because they're a good engineer, but they're qualified. So, you know, because it's hard to find a math teacher sometimes. All right. If you are, yep, go ahead, ask.
Is there a time limit that a teacher can stay in that non-certified status?
Really doesn't say that in the law. So, you know, because if somebody's just coming in to teach one class, they're not going to really be interested in trying to
going through the whole process of becoming certified. Right.
But you typically will get people who have had a different vocation and now they want to be a teacher, and they can go through the process so long as they still have, they're qualified. I mean, part of the reason of getting certified is they typically will take some classes about teaching, right? And they have to take the praxis as well. So,
Okay, thank you.
right. Yeah, for sure. But no, not really. It doesn't say that. All right. You do understand that all your students must be South Carolina residents. So you can't take, if you're on the border, you can't take Georgia or North Carolina kids. If they come over and they're living with grandma has to have custody of those children legally so that they can be enrolled into your school. Okay. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's go on down. And I want to start going through each one of the sections because that's what's important here. Oh, let's talk about the appendices first. I'm going to go down here, make sure you realize what you're supposed to be turning in here. The signature page is part of this application. Download it, sign it. Realize what you're signing though. Make sure you read it because there's 2 places to sign. Do not sign the bottom. All right, so evidence of notification to both the local school board of trustees and local delegation. So that you can look up on the state website to see who your delegation is in the state legislature. And of course, you can usually go to the website and look at the address for the local school board. So long as you send a letter, if you want to hand deliver that letter and get somebody to sign that you hand delivered it to show that you took it to the district. Easiest thing to do though is email it to the superintendent's secretary, because that's usually who gets, sees his emails first, that you sent it. That's all we really need is evidence that you either emailed it or hand delivered it, or certified mail if you want to do that. Your evidence of support is all those names of kids and parents out there who said we want to come to your school. And again, I don't want to see the list of kids' names. You need to put how many in each grade and have a notary notarize it for you. A conversion school, I don't think we have any of those. Private school documentation, if anybody is trying to be a conversion for, no, a conversion is a public to a public. A private is a private school who wants to become a charter school. You need to call me and we'll talk about that individually. Your school calendar and daily schedule for the academic year. So what we're looking for there is you've got 183 days, because 3 of those are your makeup days in your calendar. And if you're trying to do year round, just let me tell you, you probably don't want to start year round until the 2nd year, because getting into your building, I've had this conversation many times, it's kind of tough to get done and in by July. Because you're waiting on one person in the Office of School Facilities to do your review. So I would suggest you wait a little and start that on the 2nd year. But we want to see what your calendar looks like. We want to see how many professional development days you've got in there. And then your academic calendars, we actually want to see what your daily schedule looks like per grade. Okay. Then your support documents for your described educational program. So let's say you're going to do a leadership school, or you're going to do a PBL, or you're going to do a STEM school. We really need to see that you've done some research. And so we want to see what research you've done, put it in there in the Appendix G, right? Now, I'm not looking for this much. I'm looking for enough to tell me that you know what you're talking about and that you've got some backup from some of the claims that you're making. If you're quoting somebody in the application, you need to put that in category in Appendix G, wherever you got that from. Okay, your list of teaching positions. I need 2 2nd grade, 2 3rd grades. I need a fine arts. I need special ed. I need to know what those are in this list, because this list needs to match your budget. So you may not get all of those in the 1st year. You just need to tell me, year 1, we're going to have these teaching positions, year 2, year 3, year 4. But all of those have to show up in your budget as they go along, right? If you're doing a virtual school, your list of courses, again, if you're doing that, please call me. Let's talk about that individually. If you're coming to Limestone, we will not be doing an agreement with the sponsoring district for special education services. That's really only if you're local. Your charter committee, I want to see the resumes, and you know what, you need a bio in the application and the resumes in the appendices, right? I don't just recopy the bio. I want to see their resume. Okay, I want to see what they've written, not what you've taken from the resume and written as a bio. Your charter committee, your bylaws. Now, because you've already gone to the state secretary and made yourself a nonprofit, you should already have bylaws. And you write those bylaws, they need to match what you're putting in your governance part. Also, understand when you're writing the bylaws for your application, you need to make sure that include that transition from the power of the planning committee to the power of the board. So if you're not sure about that, reach out to me. Let's talk about that. Your articles of incorporation, right? There's two parts to that. There's the paperwork you fill out, and then there's the thing they give you with the seal. I need to see both of those. Your org chart, who reports to whom. If you have an EMO, CMO, there's a bunch of questions in there that's asking for documentation that shows that the EMO, CMO can do business in South Carolina, because most of them are probably not going to be from here. And information about other schools that they run. Sample job descriptions. You know, we're just basically seeing that when you say you're going to hire an interventionist, that really looks like an interventionist job description. So if you end up changing those somewhere, this is just a sample. Startup school plan. Now, this is really important because I'm really going to look at this, and I mean really look at this, because I need to see what you think is supposed to be happening every month as you go through this process of opening your school. I would suggest you reach out to some other schools and see if they have something to help you work on that. Okay. And the letter of agreement from sponsoring requiring the 5925-410, you will not need, that will not apply to you. That's really for local districts as well. So not to worry about that. The DSEG plan. You must reach out to these. Okay. It says sponsoring district here. All right. But what you really need to be putting in there, because obviously as a brand new district, we don't have any kind of desegregation issue with the Office of Civil Rights. And nobody does, as far as I know, except for two counties. And I don't even know if they still have it, which is Beaufort and Georgetown. That might be dissolved as well. But you need to reach out to the local district and say, are you under any type of desegregation plan with the Office of School Facilities? I will send you a letter from Limestone, and if you might need to reach out and remind me of this before your applications due, that just says that Limestone does not have a deseg order, but you need to reach out to your local just to make sure they don't either, because the point here is that you're pulling kids out of every school. You might screw up their deseg order because some of these deseg orders have been around for 40 years and they still have them, and they can't afford for you to screw them up. Your draft discipline policy, please do not take just a district's draft, a district's policy and put your name on it. Make sure you're welcome to use them as a template, but make sure you're making the changes that are appropriate to you. This is a draft, your actual board before school starts, like in June of the next year. They will approve your draft, your real discipline policy. So this is just something to start with. Okay, transportation services contract. Most of you will not have this. This will not be applicable. You're not going to be providing transportation because you won't be able to afford it. Now, if you can talk your local district into providing that service and you pay for it, hey, that's great. That is awesome. Don't hold your breath that that's going to happen. But if that does, we need to see the contract. Your student enrollment projection form is in the packet as well. That is to help us have an idea of how many students will be leaving traditional schools and coming into charter schools. That that has a lot to do with the state budget. So that is very important. That is also important when we do your projected student enrollment for your projected money in your July and August of your opening year. And maybe September, depends on how long it takes them to turn that around. Your per pupil estimate review, I would assume that there will be something that comes out from the state prior to everybody turning in February, which is just a statement saying this is what base student cost is and the proviso is. That really is more about the local because theirs is so different than ours. So I'll make sure that the state gives us something that says this is what it is and make sure you have that. Your 5-year budget, which is an Excel spreadsheet. Understand this is really important, okay? This 5-year budget and the 10-year budget is not the final budget of your first year. It is for you to show us that you truly understand all of the money that you get and how you're going to spend all of that money. So that's why I've said I am perfectly okay for you putting very minimal, reasonable numbers when it comes to federal money. You don't put Title I because you don't know that you will be Title I, but you do know you're going to get IDA money and you do know you're going to get Title II money. Title I, though, is based on how many free and reduced lunch. And so you may or may not be. Even if you were at, even if this, the local school next to you is, that does not mean you will be. So don't use that. But also know that every school so far up to this point for the last 12 years has gotten P&I money. I'm okay seeing very reasonable, like less than 200,000, right at 200,000 at max amount of money in your budget. It just shows me that this is what you're going to spend that money on. And if and then if you don't have it, you're going to have to figure out how to spend that, how to buy those things if you really need them. Because if you don't have that money, you'll learn to get by with less, I'm sure. But that money's crucial. I absolutely get it. It's completely crucial. Memorandums of agreement for negotiated services. That is typically with the local district as well, which you probably won't have. Any soft funds, anybody giving you money, that says, hey, once you get approved, I guarantee you I'll give you $25,000 to help you get started. You need that in writing. You can put that in your budget if you have it in writing. All right, so your floor plan of identified facility, the rental agreement, the off-school facilities, documentation, and the DOT, unless you already have a building in hand, you're not going to have any of that. But what I am looking for in the written part is where you think you're going to be, what research you've done in the area, show me some possibilities. So get your realtor to pull some possibilities for you that you've been looking at. Tell me, let me know somehow in your writing that you've gone and visited these places. And that's what I'm looking for, so that you're not at the very start point of a building when you get approved, right? DOT is not going to come out and look at those things until you're approved, until you kind of have an idea. And then once that happens, we'll get to that point later. Now, the applicable insurance documentation, what we're really looking for there is, it's just a basic list of insurance. And there are several insurance companies you can reach out to and say, hey, we're going to be a school. What kind of documentation, what kind of insurance do they actually have and need? And then it's just a listing, right? All right, that's the appendices. Any questions about those? Let me know. Okay, your executive summary can only be 2 pages, right? I need to see like big picture of 2 pages. Don't ramble. Get to the point, because you only have 2 pages to tell me everything in the big picture about your school, and that's a lot of stuff. All right. That's only 2 pages. All right. Okay, so let's talk about where we are. The first thing is, what is the need of your school? I've spent a lot of time talking about this. But I just want to go over just a couple little things. I need to see some research on the demographics of the area to which you're trying to be, because that tells me that you actually understand the community. Because when you send me this list and you say, hey, I've got 500 kids who want to come to this school, but all of them live, 2 hours away, that's not helpful, right? I need to know that you understand the community and that your people of your interest are coming from reasonable amounts of, like 30 minutes coming to your school. Right. See, do not include names of individual students. One of the things I do want to see too is how are you going to use how are you going to engage parents, right? Because charter schools exist in those first few years, especially on the generosity of parents at their money and their time, and just to get things done, to be understanding, to help you with connections. And so I really want to see you talk about how you're going to bring those parents in. You don't have to say, oh, they're all going to come volunteer so many hours, because that ain't going to happen. It's just not. But you're going to, what committees you're going to create that they can be on. Is there going to be a PTO? Or are you going to have a student advisor or a principal advisory committee? Speaking of which, if you tell me you're going to actually have a student improvement council, then you must follow all the things that the State Department, that is the SIC, the School Improvement Council, right? I mean, not student, but school. So if that's not what you want to do, and you're just going to have your own kind of principal advisory thing, then that's what you need to tell me it's going to be. You're not going to tell me it's going to be a school improvement council, because then you'd be stuck with it. All right. Okay. All right. Your curriculum, right? So while this is the heart of your school, and this can sometimes be the hardest part of the application to write, this is usually where people are most focused. And so they typically are pretty good about understanding that this is what our curriculum is going to be and look at. But I need you to understand, it's very important that you can write and explain it to me, and that when you have your capacity hearing, that you can talk about it, that you truly understand this curriculum. It's not something you did some Google searches and says, oh, let's do this, right? I need to know that you truly understand this part, because this is the heart of your school. Some of the other things, like your operational things, you can stumble sometimes and get picked up and fix it all, and it's all good. This is one of those places you really have to know what you're talking about and do. So focus hard on this area when you're writing. If you're going to use an out-of-the-box curriculum, that's fine. That's what people do. That's what companies do. They come up with curriculums to help kids. I need to see some research to that, and then you put it in the category G, Appendix G. And I need to see what's the development for teachers for that, because particularly if you're trying to say this is unique, because this is why we want to be a charter school, what I don't want to hear is, oh, well, everybody's using this. Well, if everybody's using this, why do you need to be a charter school with that curriculum? I need to see something that explains, you might be using something that lots of schools use for this little much, but then you're trying to put all these parts together to be unique. If you're trying to do that, there needs to be some serious professional development to explain to me how all that works. All right. Okay. All right. Also going to just thinking about the structure of your school, this is kind of where your org chart becomes really important, in the fact that, you've got somebody sitting out here and they've got like 2 people that report to them, and then everybody and their brother reports to this person over here. That what the questions we're going to ask you is, how is that feasible and possible? Are these little bitty things, and that, it's really not that much. You're going to have to really explain that to us. But these people, the only reason they have 2 is because it's a very big job. I can maybe buy that, but I really have to understand who reports to whom and what the workload is there in your educational structure. That's really important. Admin is important. It's not just about your teachers, because your teachers can't focus on teaching if you don't have enough admin staff to keep things out of the teacher's hands. Things they don't have time to do, because everything they have to do that's beyond teaching takes away from teaching. So I think it's good that they have something other than just teaching, like they have a committee they're on, or some kind of project they do in the school, so that they get them out of their classroom and into the whole school. But when you start saying teachers are going to do this, 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 and this, and this, I'm start saying that's too much stuff for them, and they're not going to be effective teachers. So make sure that you put enough admin staff in. Obviously, don't be too heavy on the admin staff, but put enough to where teachers can teach. Okay. All right, this is a huge one. Again, I just want to remind everybody, I'm not asking you to quote the regs. I don't need that. I think we're all past that in what we're looking for here. Every school is going to get the template from Limestone that says, here's the district's policies that we get from the state. They pass them down. We're going to keep them minimal, and we're going to give them to you and say, here, you make them fit your school. Like, tell us all these things that you're going to do that fulfill these policies and procedures to fulfill your requirements for SPED and 504 and anything else like that. We're going to be very, very minimal and only give you those federal things. Everything else will be on you and your board to come up with, because that's what you're trying to be here. It's an independent school. So don't quote the regs. Tell us about how you understand serving these kids. Please do not tell us that you're going to be all inclusive, because that's a big red X, right? But if you do have some type of unique model, particularly because that's who you're serving, is kids with special needs, tell us what that is. But let me be clear here. If you are having a special model for kids with disabilities, you must discuss with me in this application, how are you going to transfer and transition those kids from, hey, I'm coming out of traditional school and this is what my IEP looks like, and hey, due to our model, this is what the IEP is going to look like. Because if I'm giving a service that at a traditional school is just special ed, but everybody's getting it now at this school, then it's no longer special ed. You've got to explain to us how you're transitioning those kids from a special education teacher. And so there's a lot that goes into that. And so you need to really think through that. But you really don't have any, you don't get off the hook for special ed, although lots of people like to say charter schools, don't take SPED. We really do. And we actually take them at a higher rate most of the time than the traditional schools do. Your goals and objectives, your goals should be measurable themselves. That not 5 objectives that if you meet these objectives, then you've met the goal. You really need, those goals need to stand on their own. The objectives are going to tell us how you're going to get there to make that goal achievable. And the reason that is because when you come up for renewal, or if in your just annual review, the Limestone's going to look at your charter and say, okay, here's the goals you wrote. And here's, you only met 3 of those objectives. And so you didn't meet these 2. So, hey, did you really meet that goal? So if your goal is obtainable and can stand alone, then that's much easier. Now, I'm going to say this very clearly. You're going to write your goals in here, and then we're going to rewrite your goals once you actually have more information on the kids that you get. So I want, when we're reading your goals, we're reading them to say, okay, you clearly understand what you're trying to achieve. You might, don't be grandiose about it, thinking, hey, we're going to go in there and, we're going to be a Title I school, and hey, we're going to be what you call it 90-90-90 schools, where 90% of your kids are poverty and 90% of your kids are achieving all the goals and all this kind of stuff. Be reasonable. Nobody's looking for that. What we're looking for is you say, I'm going to go into this demographic, or I've got this special program and I'm not really going to be serving at-risk kids. I'm going to be serving maybe the other side or just general kids. And this is what we're going to do. And so we think we can achieve this in year 1, this in year 2, and this in year 3. Be reasonable, but be rigorous. Don't tell me you're going to hit the bottom and that's it, right? We want to see something that tells us you believe that your unique school and your curriculum is going to make a difference in student achievement. I also want to see very mission-driven goals. Don't make it all about state testing. Make sure that you're writing, if you're a PBL school or a leadership school or a STEM school, goals that just are not about state testing, but how you're measuring your mission. That is super important, super important. And as a general rule, I'm going to know if you actually watch this video, if you take your mission and tell me, and as many of the sections of this charter application that are applicable, how you're using your mission to create this section of your application. So how is your educational structure supporting your mission? How is your goal supporting your mission? You know, what are you measuring your mission? So I really want to see that, because that means everything in your application in your school will be mission driven. And that's what it's supposed to be. Okay. All right. Oh, assessments. You know, if you're doing, please don't tell me you're using MAP or iReady specifically. Please tell me you're using a whatever plan. But if you start writing MAP and iReady, you kind of get stuck, and that's what you're using because you said that's what I'm using without doing an amendment. Explain to us the type of assessment you're going to use without saying it's one or the other, or whatever you're going to use, STAR, whatever. So you're not stuck in that. So if you want to change later on, so long as it's measuring the same thing, maybe just in a little different way, it's fine. Okay. All right. Organization, your governing board. Your governing board starts out as your planning committee, and then you will transition after you actually have a group of parents and employees that are eligible to vote. Only employees and parents can vote. The board cannot vote. The planning committee, if their parents, can vote once the school opens. But if you have a board of 7 to 9 people, if they're not parents, they don't vote. Okay, so don't tell me that you're going to let the board vote, because they're not. 50% have to be 50% have to be elected, and 50% have to have a background in K-12 education or business. And business is pretty open. There's no actual definition. So anybody that owns their own business, runs their own business, it might be in upper management of a business, anything like that would really qualify. All right, and understand it is the governing board that holds the charter, not the principal, not the EMO. It is the governing board. Right. So, and I'm going to be looking to see if your bylaws and your narrative section of your board matches. So don't take somebody else's bylaws and put your name on them. Make sure that you're talking about the transition that happens and when you vote, how many are elected, how many are appointed. You can appoint up to 50%. So if you had 8, you could appoint 4, but it's never a good idea to have an even number unless your board chair is not going to vote except in a situation of a tie. So 7 and 9 is great. That's the best numbers. You have to have 7 for state law. Okay, let's keep going. If you are using an EMO, there's several questions in here. What we're looking to see is what's the responsibility of the EMO and what's the responsibility of the governing board. And let me go back to governing board and tell you 2 things here. If they are using an EMO or a CMO, and basically the EMO CMO is actually running the daily operations of the school and everybody works for them, then the number one job that the board does, the number one job is to make sure that the EMO is living up to the contract and the charter. They're doing what they said they're going to do. If you are not using an EMO CMO, then number one thing that the board does is hire a head of school, evaluate that head of school, and make sure that the school is fiscally sound. So if you have an EMO, typically your EMO is dealing with your finances as well, and that's part of your contract that you're holding them accountable to. And you need to tell me that you're going to evaluate the EMO every year, and you're going to evaluate the principal every year if the principal works for you. If the principal works for the EMO, you do not. Okay. That's what the EMO does. You're doing the EMO. If you have questions about this EMO CMO thing, please reach out. You can reach out for anything, but I didn't go over this a whole lot because I'm not really sure who's using and who's not, but I'm certainly open to answer any questions. Okay, building leadership, really want to hear about that. Even if the EMO is hiring the principal, we really want to hear about how that administrator and all of your administrators are being developed for leadership. And you get in charter schools, we get a lot of young administrators because they're taking a chance and they're leaving regular school because they think they're going to get promoted quicker and sooner. And that's a lot of that's true. And on the other hand, people who are in big districts who would love to be a principal, but they're never going to get to be a principal in their current district because of all the politics of their local district, will come over to charter schools. A principal from a traditional school will come over thinking that they know everything about being a principal, and they do not. It is a learning curve for every single person who becomes a head of school at a charter school, because there is not a district who takes care of stuff for you like in traditional districts. You're responsible at that school level for pretty much everything because that's your autonomy to make the decisions. Limestone is your support system and your oversight. And so when you need training, you need help, you reach out and say, hey, I'm new to this. What do I do here? Tell me, I'm a little lost. Hey, there's going to be people to explain to you, well, this is how it works, right? But we're not going to tell you, these are the decisions that you need to make this decision and do this and do that. That's your autonomy. And that's contrary to being a charter school for us to take it over and just treat you like a traditional school. So that principalship, that head of school, is going to have a learning curve. I need you to acknowledge that that is going to happen no matter who you hire. Only way that doesn't happen is if you literally are hiring another charter school principal that's been a principal for at least 2 or 3 years in one of the statewide districts, because otherwise there is just so much to learn. But we want to see what are you putting in place for that, to support that person and to get them developed. Okay, so employees, things to remember: you don't do contracts, you do work agreements, because one of the things about charter school law is that they can be at will. If you choose to do contracts, then you're giving up one of the good things about charter school law. And meaning that if you were to hire somebody and you just realized, oh, that was a bad hire, bad hire, and you can basically say, look, this was just not a good idea, it's not working out, we don't need you to finish out the rest of the year. You can't do that in traditional districts. You can here. Now on the flip side, they can leave you in the middle of the year high and dry, and you're like, crap, how am I going to find a 3rd grade teacher, right, in the middle of the year? Because the local district had an opening and hey, they can make more money or something like that. They can do that too. So it's a double-edged sword, but typically charter schools like that flexibility, right? Let's see here. This talk, and we've already talked about certified and non-certified. You see, you will not do the 5925 410 because you will not be with a local district. Okay. All right. Enrollment, lottery. Really important that you understand that you can have a priority for your planning committee kids, not for kids who are in your initial, let me start all over. In your initial, everybody's a planning committee, right? And so those kids have priority to get into your school via the lottery. That's because they do a lot of work for that. Make sure that you have a couple of policies set up for that, meaning that if parents are going to be on your committee, that they're required to do certain things. They can't just go sign up to be on your committee and say, oh, I'm going to do this work, and they don't do anything, their kid gets in because they were on the planning committee. Make sure you have something set forth that says these are the things they must do. Tell me that in this section. Also, have an anchor child policy that says that if one kid gets in, a sibling's automatically in by state law for priority. Now, you don't have to do that, but everybody does that. You'd be crazy not to. It's helpful for the enrollment, right? But let's say a mom's got 3 kids and she's really only interested in her 3rd grader getting in, but she goes ahead and applies for her 5th grader and her 1st grader. Well, if one of those get pulled, then her kid's in, and then she really never meant for those other 2 to come. She just needs it for this kid. And so therefore that kid had priority when that kid really should not have had priority if the anchor kid's not coming. So I would suggest that you put that in, that there is an anchor side to it, that the anchor child policy is going to exist so that you don't let parents play the system on you there. So siblings, and then employees' kids. Now in your first lottery, you may or may not have hired all of your employees. So that may or may not affect you. And then the planning committee. So, but let me choose not. So once your school is open, and then you have people who get on your board, and they'll run for election on your board so that next year they can get their kid in the lottery. They do not have priority just because they're on the board. They had to be on the planning committee for that, right? Then tell us that process of what happens. Are you giving them so long to say, yes, I want my seat? And they've got so long before they actually have to get all their information in. You need to really think through that process. Look at some other charter schools, how they do it. Typically, schools will have their lottery policy on their website. So do some research at a lot of other schools. If you are an AEC, you need to be very clear here. You cannot screen kids prior to the lottery. Even if you hear, oh, well, this school does it, you cannot do that. You can only use priority of a mission-driven school if you actually have to have a lottery. So if you're a school serving, you only want to serve students with disabilities, but you've got, I don't know, let's say you got 20 spots in second grade and you only have 15 kids sign up at the end of enrollment. Okay, then you have to let whoever come to fill those spots because you have a vacancy and you did not have to have a lottery because all 15 got in because you got 20 spots. So be careful if you're an AEC. Do not tell me you're going to review kids' applications and all their files and all that prior to the lottery. You can ask their name, where they came from, what district they're in. It gives you an idea and make sure that you're actually marketing enough. Their parents' contact information so that when they get pulled, somebody can notify their parents, right? You cannot ask their gender, even though you might see that on things. The only way you can ask gender is if you actually are having a single gender school, which you can do in South Carolina. But you should be very clear with that, saying if you're a girl, you're not getting in. This is a boys' school. You can't, so if you're not doing that, if you're having a general school, you cannot ask gender on the application because that is a protected class and they could claim you were trying to level it out and you had too many one way and too many the other. Now, Montessori schools like to have equal numbers, but you cannot do that in the lottery. You cannot. You cannot ask if they have a disability. You cannot ask their race. You cannot ask their ethnicity either, okay? Because those are all protected class issues to which if they don't get in, they might say, oh, well, you knew I was whatever and you had too many of those. And so I didn't get in, right? So think through this and look at some other policies. And if you see somebody has gender on their application, don't copy that, okay? Don't follow that. All right. And how are you going to notify parents? It's got to be a public hearing. I mean, it's got to be a public session. So, and in the time of COVID, it might be that you just do it as a Zoom drawing. That's okay. I wouldn't only suggest that, but typically the easiest thing to do is to make it public, is to have people be able to come and have it on Zoom or go to Meeting or whatever else or online. And some people even do it on Facebook Live. All right, your discipline policies, again, make sure that if you're using a template, that you understand that you go through it. Make sure I don't look through it and find another school's name, okay? And in those also, and again, in your special ed policies where I don't want you to quote regs, I do want you to explain to us, how are you going to discipline children with disabilities? And talk to us some about that manifestation review and BIBA and FIPS, FIBAs and BIPs, and how that works into special ed. Please don't just tell me you're going to follow special ed law. Explain that to me a little bit. Tell me you understand that. Transportation, you're not getting any money for, you're exempt from it. Please don't tell me you're going to tell a bunch of parents to, you're going to set up a carpooling with all your parents in the school, because that could make you liable if something happens because it was a school sponsored event. You know, if you are on the bus line, tell me you're on the bus line. That's great. You might actually, without you coordinating transportation, you could actually have a message board, and it's just a parent driven. You can get a parent to do something on Facebook that says, hey, we're looking for rides. So long as it stays out there and it's a parent thing and you're not doing it, then you're not going to have really any liability to that. So be careful what you say in here. Okay. Your business plan. So this is big. And this is where I'm going to spend a lot of time looking to see if everything you said in the application matches what you're saying in the budget. Please know that it's really important for you to list the assumptions. And I've said this multiple times. Please do not do this on your own. Please, please, please get with someone who has done school finance, who does this all the time. There's several companies out there that do school finance. Don't do this on your own. But I do want to make sure that you realize that there is a connection. I'm going to be looking for that connection. You tell me that you're going to be a project-based learning school and you're going to use the Buck Institute, and I go look at your budget, you've got like $500 in professional development. I'm going to know that you have no idea what the Buck Institute really is and how much it actually costs. So make sure you're joining those two things together, that they're hand in hand. Again, I'm okay if you use reasonable amounts of money. This is not your final first year budget. It is to show me that you truly understand the bigger picture of the budget and all the money you're going to get and how you're going to spend it. All right. Okay. And let's see. Facilities. Simple again, just one last time. Make sure that you're going to, you've done some research, telling me what you think, where you're going to be, show me some options. If you are working with a developer already, then let me know that. I'm going to call that developer because I know most of them and I've known them for years. So they're probably all in my phone. I'm going to call them and say, hey, are you working with these people? Because they said you are. So make sure that if you're working with somebody, you don't have to have a signed agreement with them, but you're having conversations, then let me know that. That is perfectly fine. Insurance, again, is just the basics that you need. Any insurance company that works with schools will be able to provide that for you. Okay, that is my overall. Again, reach out, ask questions. I am your friend. I am your source of information until the day you turn in, and then I'm no longer that. I am I'm the authorizer who is critiquing your application. I will tell you that the readers that we're going to have all worked at schools and have lots and lots and lots of charter school experience in South Carolina. So they know what they're reading. And you're not going to get some crazy out-of-state stuff. They know what to expect and what they're reading, right? And this assurances page must be you need to, let me say it again. You need to read this assurances page, and then you make sure that you do the certification page, right? Okay. Do not sign the bottom of this form. This is not for your signature yet. That is after you get approved. And then once you get approved, it gets sent to the State Department. This is the projection form right here. This is just to give us an idea of the number of kids. It is not asking you for how many are special ed or anything like that. Of what we talked about, the add-ons, you know, being special ed or pupils in poverty or high achieving or academic assistance. When we get closer to time, we will give you another form to fill out, and it will give us better projections so that when we turn into the State Department of Ed what your projections are, they will show how many special ed kids you think you're going to have, how many pupils in poverty, just to give us an idea. Okay. Okay. This see, this talks about the off-school facilities, but if you don't have anything in hand, you don't need to do any of that. Okay. That was a lot in 50 minutes. And so again, it's T. Bryant Riches at limestonecharters.org, or my phone number is 665-2011. I'm on the website. Good luck. I would like to meet all of you that are going to apply to Limestone prior to you turning in your application, just so that we can have some personal one-on-one time. I can talk to your group. You can ask me lots of questions there that's specific to your situation. And so I plan to be very busy visiting people in January. And so if I get these applications in February and I've never had a conversation with you, that's not going to make me feel good about you. Okay. Because I've said multiple times, reach out to me, reach out to me, reach out to me. If you don't, I'm also going to know that you're not watching these videos and you think you can just do this on your own. And so again, I'm not going to feel real good about you. So good night. Happy holidays. And let me know if you need me. Delia, you're on with me. Was there any questions? Because you didn't stop me. So
No, like I said, I'm still making my way through the last couple of videos, but again, I appreciate the approach. All of this content's been very digestible, and the few questions that I did have for follow-up, you hit on in your review. So
okay, good.
Thank you.
Good. But if not, again, reach out. So good night, everybody.
Okay.
Happy holiday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.